It Takes You Away is the 9th episode of Series 11, directed by Jamie Childs and written by Ed Heim. And I'll be entirely honest here, fam, and I'm saying fam because I'm seeing it. It's been a long time since Doctor Who caused like a physical, emotional reaction in me, but here we are. But friends, the only Who episodes for me are the mad ones. The ones that are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved. The red kangs, the carcasses, the edges of destruction. More gridlock than earthshock. The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing or do extended Kerouac references that go nowhere. Now, It Takes You Away isn't entirely bizarre. In fact, it has the most clearly delineated 3-act structure I've seen on this show in a long time. The emotional core centers around Hannah, a teenage girl living in the Norwegian wilderness whose mother recently died, and now her father has been missing for 4 days, and she hears monstrous noises outside, and she doesn't know what to do until the doctor and friends show up. She happens to be blind, which I think is actually handled pretty well. They cast a blind actress to play her, first off. And secondly, the story's not really about her disability being either a hindrance or a help. The story's going to play out how it's going to play out, and her inability to see affects the narrative, but only drives it in as much as it makes it somewhat easier for her dad to get away with what he's doing, and mostly she's just a scared kid mourning her mom and missing her dad, which is kind of the theme of this episode, is sort of mourning and loss. And honestly, for a while, I was trying to fit this show into another fairly well-known pattern, that being Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. I mean, at various points throughout the episode, we actually see all of them. Eric is literally living in denial on the other side of the mirror. Hannah's angry at her father for abandoning her. Ribbons, who we meet in the middle of the episode and who lives at the midpoint between worlds, well, his whole thing is the 3rd stage, the middle stage, bargaining, really. The Solitract itself is arguably in a state of depression about its separation from our universe, and eventually, everyone kind of arrives at some form of acceptance. Thing is, though, Kubler-Ross was actually talking about the stages people tend to go through when they have a terminal illness and not mourning, per se. So if you're really looking for the Whoniverse's take on the 5 stages, check out the 10th Doctor's whole thing in his last episode, The End of Time, because, folks, it's all there. But whether that was the intention here or not, it did feel like it resonated with the popular conception of Kubler-Ross's theory here and there. A little, maybe. Regardless, it felt more like weird Doctor Who, which is kind of my personal favorite version of Doctor Who than any other story of this year, except maybe Kerblam, and I'm still not sure whether or not I agree with the existence of Kerblam. Then again, I don't think Kerblam necessarily agrees with Kerblam either, so... Okay, the TARDIS crew arrives on a fjord, probably. Here's the thing. If you're worrying about whether or not the Doctor can really tell that they're in Norway near an alpaca farm with a gift shop by tasting the soil, I don't know how to put this. Okay, yeah, I do. You're watching the wrong show. She's either joking or she isn't. That's part of the fun. No one's lives are going to be affected by the existence or non-existence of the freaking alpaca farm. Not until the Woolly Rebellion starts, anyway. Anyway, how does the Woolly Rebellion fit into Lance Parkin's A-history? Sort it out your damn selves. I'm behind schedule as it is. Anyway, they see a cabin in Norway in winter with a chimney but no smoke, and decide to check it out. I mean, conceivably, someone could, they could just not be home, or whatever. This is sort of one of the 2 big problems with the episode. They didn't shoot this in winter. Certainly not winter in northern Norway. Kinda works against what they're going for a little bit, because this portion of the show is clearly trying to set itself up as kind of a modern minimalist horror flick, like A Quiet Place, and could have really benefited from that chilly snowbound Scandinavian horror thing that makes movies like Troll Hunter and Dead Snow and that one Black Mirror episode so stark and crisp. The big, wide, empty spaces that are kind of cold and starkly lit give us a sense that we're alone, that no one can help us, that there's something out there lurking, filling all that space, and we don't know what it is. We know it's Doctor Who, so it could be a monster, or it could be something worse. Look, it's a Scandinavian house, children's shoes, there's candy wrappers. There could be a witch, or other child-eating thing. You don't know what they get up to up there. They eat lutefisk. I don't know. That's weird. What they find is a scared kid being traumatized by noises outside. Graham offers her a sandwich. She tells them what's been happening. Ryan thinks Dad just ran off, and the doctor shoots him down, even though he's totally right, because Ryan knows from absent fathers. Let's not forget that. Hannah's mad, so Yaz connects with her over Hannah's Arctic Monkeys t-shirt, which she got from her mom. Her mom saw the Arctic Monkeys when they played Norway the first time. The Monkeys are from Sheffield. The logo on the Monkeys t-shirt looks the same backwards and forwards, which is an interesting clue for later on. And good on Yes for using her police training to calm down a scared kid. But, okay, see, it's one thing if you don't like the frog or the woolly uprising, because, that stuff actually totally makes sense within the show, but if Hannah's mother saw the Arctic Monkeys at their first Norwegian show, that would have been back in July of 2005, about 6 months before their debut record came out, whereas the t-shirt that Hannah and her mother are both wearing was sold during the AM tour, which was in 2014, and they didn't visit Norway on that tour. Besides, they never sold it in purple, and oh sure, maybe she bought it online or at a record shop or something, but don't think for a second I wasn't gonna look that up. Crawling back to you, never thought I'd come. Anyway, the team goes exploring through the house looking for clues and finds a magic mirror. The doctor sticks her face in it and is astonished at what she sees. End of Act 1. Act 2. And then the episode takes a turn and briefly becomes an early episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel. This is the second episode in a row where the makeup on the quote-unquote monster is very Whedon-esque. And Ribbons looks like a ripoff of the Master, no, not that Master, the Buffy Master, and acts a bit like a second-tier Angel dummy antagonist. But again, I'm fine with that because I like Angel and Buffy. The set looks like that cave where Dawn met Joel Grey that one time, but it wouldn't be Doctor Who without a crap set saved by good lighting, and this is definitely a crap set saved by good lighting, or at least lighting that looks like a ContraPoints video. I don't think we ever find out why Ribbons is here in this very Whedon-esque space in the Whedon Whoniverse, but I'm not sure if I care. Yeah, Ribbons is an obvious plot device, but he's so much fun, albeit in a slightly cliched genre television kind of way, that I don't care. It's fine. I'm gonna go with it. Though, Ribbon of the Seven Stomachs, is this like an anthropomorphic tapeworm? Because ew, but then again, cool. Bargaining's the weirdest stage of grief anyway. What do you hope to accomplish? Who are you talking to? How did you get here? And bargaining is what Ribbon is doing constantly. He wants the Sonic. He has the only light in the realm. You can have it for a price, etc. If you're a fan of those shows, and this is going to sound like a no-brainer to you if you're a fan of those shows, but one repeating theme in both Buffy and Angel is death and grief, right? And I'm not just talking about episodes like The Body, which deals with the death of Buffy's mother in an uncharacteristically stark way, or the fact that Buffy dies twice in the series herself, and she's brought back to life, but her resurrections have consequences. Because baked into the actual essence of the show, the meaning of the show itself, is the concept of bargaining with death. She fights vampires.
Don't do that! Why are we not in the mirror?
I don't know.
We'd know if we were vampires, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Back in Norway, Ryan and Hannah are bonding. This girl's utter faith in her father's ability to not be a total shitheel is truly heartbreaking in hindsight, of course, but yeah, Ryan totally lies to Hannah because the doctor told Ryan to lie to Hannah about the doctor's message on the wall, but...
Which bit of the house is weakest on the map?
The conservatory? Sometimes I shouldn't say words.
Ryan figures out that Hannah's dad has been tricking her this whole time with an elaborate system of speakers, and when he goes to tell her, she clocks him with a door and steals his key, and crashes through the looking glass into the space between universes, because brackets, young girl, portal, fiction, Alice, Dorothy, trope, fill in this bit later when you've thought about it more. What? Oh, okay. Now, I don't know if this is at all what Ed Heim, Chris Chibnall, or Jamie Childs had in mind, but... It Takes You Away seems to be pulling its aesthetics from other bits of geek media that address different aspects of mourning and loss in very particular ways. Act 1 is A Quiet Place. Emptiness and absence, and the monster is scary because we don't see it. That kind of thing. Act 2 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because that's where we try to cope with the finality of death by trying to force it into something tangible that we can argue with or fight with. Conversations with dead people, if you will. Meanwhile, the Dr. Yaz and Graham are now in a perfect mirror image of the world they've just left, and that's when we learn about the Solitract, and for the second time this episode, we're in a different show altogether. So, Hannah's dad Eric is here. This mysterious, quirky land beyond the mirror is, in fact, a perfect mirror universe to our own, except everything's backwards, including Dad's Slayer t-shirt, which is charming as fuck. Oh, and also his dead wife and Hannah's mom is here, and she's supposed to be dead, so that's a thing. But he's been gone for 4 days. 4 days. 4 days, leaving a kid, a blind kid, to fend for herself. Oh, she's a teenager, she'll be fine. Yeah, for like a day. We'll get back to this one. This is kind of a bit like the Nexus from Star Trek. It's just, our world, but with people we miss in it.
Come here. I know I stayed away from Hana too long, but I kept thinking, what if I go and I can't come back? I can't lose Trina again.
I kind of wish they'd borrowed something else from Star Trek's Nexus. Specifically, the idea that time has no meaning here. He's been gone for 4 days in our reality, but maybe he thinks he just got there. Like, Kirk's been gone for 70 years, but he thinks he just got there. That'd play into the whole mourning thing too, actually. Losing track of time, neglecting people who are actually still around. Like Hannah. Or Ryan, come to think of it. And as soon as Graham arrived, so did Grace. He's trepidatious about it. It clearly can't be her, but Grace remembers everything that happened to her that night and also likes frogs, so he kind of goes with it. So the Doctor thinks things through and remembers a Gallifreyan fairy tale from Granny 5, which Granny 5 isn't really that important right now. It's a story of two universes who just can't get along, and so our universe, something, and so they got exiled, but they want to get back together with our universe, and that's the origin of love. From Hedwig and the Angry Inch, except instead of searching for our other halves in order to fulfill ourselves, this story is about two fundamentally incompatible entities who can't quite quit each other, the quantum physics version of a toxic relationship, or a decent metaphor for the futile yearning that follows a loss. There needs to be that separation, or it will destroy you, which is the one way I can sort of see myself towards forgiving Hannah's awful dad with the backwards Slayer shirt. Mourning makes you an ass, and since he hasn't been well since Mom died, he sets up an elaborate set of speakers and bear traps to protect and scare his daughter while he nips off behind the mirror for some backwards hanky-panky with Mum. Though it could also be argued that the Solitract itself is also behaving poorly in grief by trying to force people from our universe to stay with them, so I don't know.
What about Ryan? He's in trouble out there, love.
He'll be fine. He's a smart lad.
Grace essentially trying to get Graham to leave Ryan behind in the creepy flesh moth cave winds up being kind of like a Wisdom of Solomon kind of situation where he says, okay, I'll chop the baby in half. And the real mother says, no, don't. And the fake mother says, yeah, that seems fair. Because only the child's real mother wouldn't want to slaughter an infant. I'm starting to think that the Bible's morality is just about as dubious as Series 11.
So close. You were so close.
But you know what else referenced this ethical conundrum?
I'm your captain, Spock. Can't you tell? Shoot! Shoot! Right, Spock, you must shoot. But you must shoot both of us. It's the only way to ensure the safety of the Enterprise.
Yeah. Which, by the way, was itself referenced in another show.
What do we do if it doesn't work?
Kill us both, Spock.
They're kind of the same now.
But it's also a thing someone might do in desperation, and an entire universe longing to be reunited with our universe after billions of years of mourning might start to act a little psychopath-testy too, And in the end, the Solitract has to push us away, because we can travel over the rainbow, but we can never peek behind the veil.
Just one thing. This world is falling apart. I reckon you can only keep one of us. You sure he's your best option? Because the Solitract doesn't want a husband. You want a whole universe. Someone who has seen it all, and that's me. I've lived longer, seen more, loved more, and lost more. I can share it all with you. Anything you want to know about what you never had. Because he's an idiot with a daughter who needs him, so let him go. and I will give you everything. My fire is wild.
So I like the frog. It Takes You Away has some stuff to say about grief and loss that, while not necessarily profound and probably not applicable to everyone's situation, is still pretty damn interesting on an emotional level. Did it need a 3-act structure that, with the acts so varied that they sometimes felt like jarring tonal shifts? Not really, unless... Some of Doctor Who's strongest episodes have been the result of taking a particular type of existent narrative and throwing the Doctor at it. And this story just happens to do that 3 times, and manages to still be about something. A person could take action to process that grief, and that the symbols, myths, cultural texts, and references, etc. that we live with could serve as guideposts to get you from denial to acceptance, as they have for sentient beings of all types forever. Even Granny 5. So I like the frog. Grace also liked frogs. The universe liked her, so the universe is a frog now. Just kind of roll with it. Or don't. I like it, but I'm a man dreaming he's a capybara dreaming he's a man, so what do I know? I like the frog because it's whimsical and unexpected, and I like the Candyman and the Pating and all that cute weird stuff in this show, but I also like it for the same reason the Solitract likes it. I like it because Grace liked it. Something I've noticed from my own personal experience when I've lost somebody close to me is that the process of acceptance tends to start with a frog. Okay, not really a frog, really, but like a funny story about that person, about that thing they liked, or that weird quirk they had, or that funny thing they did that one time, right? And Grace loved frogs. And therefore, it kind of makes sense that at the end, the Solitract would take the form of a frog. That's the start of acceptance. That's the things we leave behind, the start of acceptance, the symbols that meant something to us. Grace loved frogs. And so, come to think of it, does my dad, and I should really call him, because he's still around, and I know a lot of people who actually lost their fathers recently, and there's a few things I should ask him before the universe collapses.